So, hello everyone. I'm back again with my new question and answers for class 12, first chapter, the last lesson. So, first question: what was France expected to be prepared for with school that day? That day, France was expected to be prepared with the lessons on rules governing the use of participles. His teacher, Haml, had announced the previous day that he would question the students on this topic, but Franz had failed to learn his lesson and he feared punishment. Next question: what did Franz notice that was unusual about the school that day? How was the scene at the school on the morning of the last French lesson different from that on other days? Franz noticed that the absence of usual din. Instead, he found everything to be as quiet as if on a Sunday morning. No opening and no closing of desks, repetition of lessons, or rapping of the teacher's ruler on the table could be heard. Students were seated and the elderly had occupied the back benches. Next question: what had been put on the bulletin board? Or what was the bulletin board news that caused a change in the school? The order was of the Prussians that bear teaching of French and made compulsory the teaching of German in the districts of Alsace and Lorraine had been put on the bulletin board. This was piece of shocking information that hit directly the national pride of the French people. Next question: what changes did the order from Berlin cause in school that day? Or what was the order from Berlin and what changes did it cause in the school? Or how did the order from Berlin change the situation in the school? The order from the Berlin sought to replace the teaching of French with German in the schools of Alsace and Lorraine. This order awakened patriotic sentiments in the locals and everyone reached school well before time. Both the teachers and the students devoted rapt attention to their last French lesson. Next question. The people in the story suddenly realize how precious their language is to them. What shows this? What does this happen? The keen interest taken by the villagers, Franz regret at having ignored the study of his mother tongue, and M. Hammel's emotionally charged last lesson show the sudden realization by all about their language being precious. This happened because the order from Berlin barred the study of French. Franz thinks, will they make them sing in German, even the pigeons? What could this mean? Franz's philosophical thoughts means that the Germans can never succeed in destroying the inherent love of the French for their motherland, just as they can never succeed in changing the spontaneous singing of precious pigeons. Next question. What was the narrator's greatest fear as he moved towards school? Or why was Franz afraid when he was going to school that day? Why did Franz was not does not want to go to school that day? Franz had got late for the school that day and was afraid of his teacher Hamel reprimand. He did not want to go to school as he had failed to learn the rules governing the use of participles and he dreaded his teacher's angry reaction to the incomplete task. Next question. What thoughts ran across Fran's mind as he walked towards the school? What ideas tempted Franz as he moved towards the school? Franz thought of spending the day outdoors and enjoying its warmth and brightness. The sight of the chirping birds and the drill of Prussian soldiers were more inviting options than the rules of participles that he was expected to learn at school. Next question. What did Franz observe as he passed the town hall? Why did the sight trouble him? Franz observed a huge crowd in front of the bulletin board as he passed the town hall. This sight troubled him because all the ill news from the battlefield had reached the French people through this bulletin board during the past 2 years. What was the implication of the blacksmith's remark? How did Franz respond to his remarks? Watcher, the blacksmith, remarked upon the reluctant manner in which Franz walked towards school. He meant to taunt the boy. Unaware of the notice on the bulletin board, Franz thought that the blacksmith was making fun of him and he responded by quickening his steps. What surprises awaited Franz as he entered his classroom? What changes did Franz notice about school that day? Franz noticed a polite Hamel and a quiet class on that day. These were surprising changes from the usual angry teacher and a noisy class. Besides, Hamel was dressed in his best clothes, which he wore only on his inspection and prize days. Another astonishing change was the presence of village folk in the classroom. Next question. How was MML dressed differently that day? Why? That day MML was dressed in his best attire which he otherwise wore only on special days like inspection and prize days. It was a beautiful green coat, frilled shirt and a little black silk cap, all embroidered. He did so because he wanted to devote his best to his last lesson. Next question. What was the thunderclap the narrator received as M. Hamel began the lesson? What a thunderclap these words were for me. What were the words that shocked and surprised the narrator? What announcement did M. Hamel make? What was the impact on France? M. Hamel's announcement that it was to be the last French lesson came as a thunderclap to the narrator. Further elaboration that a new German teacher would arrive shortly and Hamel would leave forever shocked the narrator. Why had the villagers occupied the back benches of the class that day? Who occupied the back benches in the classroom on that day of the last lesson? Why? The villagers occupied the back benches of the class that day as a mark of respect and gratitude for 40 years of meritorious service of their teacher and to exhibit loyalty towards their mother tongue. They wanted to atone their guilt and having missed school earlier. Next question. What did the narrator wish when he was asked to recite the rules of the participles by the teacher? How did he actually recite? Realizing it to be the last lesson of the French, the narrator wished to recite the rules flawlessly. Contrary to his wish, he got all mixed up and stood quietly and guilt-ridden about his carelessness and casual attitude towards learning. Next question. Why didn't M. Hamel scold Franz for not learning his lesson? M. Hamel did not scold Franz because he was immensely pained by the German order that was to deprive the French from the privilege of learning their mother tongue. He pitied up pitied Franz because earlier things had been taken for granted and now opportunities were lost. What does Hamel means when he says we have all a great deal to approach ourselves with? We have All a great deal to reproach ourselves with, said Hamel. Comment. Why did Hamel blame for the neglect of learning on the part of boys like France? Through this remark, Hamel voices his repentance at the lost opportunity to learn French. Adults were as much to be blamed as the children for preferring work at farms and mills over schools. Sometimes even Hamel had sent children on errands, thereby making them miss lessons. How was MML different in the last class from previous classes? Earlier, MML had been a cross and cranky hard taskmaster, but in his last class, his voice had mellowed. He was grave, gentle, and patient. He was not rapping his ruler on the table. He had taken the trouble to dress up in his best clothes. Next question. How was M. Hammel's last class different from his previous classes? M. Hammel's last class was attended by dedicated, disciplined, and attentive students who were in contrast to their usual unruly selves, controllable without scolding and punishment. The village folk, who otherwise never bothered to attend school, has also occupied the last benches. What did the new copies prepared by MML look like? The new copies prepared by MML looked like little flags floating everywhere in the schoolroom. He had written France, Alsace on each of them in a beautiful round circle. These copies stood for national pride of the French people. Next question. Why did M. Hamel insist that the people of Alsace should hold on to their language? Why does the teacher feel the need to safeguard French language? M. Hamel insisted that the people of Alsace should hold on to their language because it was the symbol of their identity. It was also their key to freedom, and safeguarding it would have kept alive their hopes to liberate France. Next question. How did M. Hamel display his love for the French language? M. Hamel displayed his love for the French language by dedicating every single minute of his last lesson to make his students love, appreciate, and learn it. He not only devoted time to grammar, writing, and history, but also made his students realize its words and as their identity. Next question. How did the people react when they realized that they will never be allowed to learn their language? People of Alsace reacted with patriotic enthusiasm. They attended the last lesson in full capacity and with absolute sincerity. Even the teacher was unusually patient. The lesson received rapt attention from both the teachers and the students. Next question. Why did How does M. Hamel prove to be an ideal teacher? M. Hamel selflessly dedicates himself to teaching for 40 years. His devotion towards the profession is seen when he utilizes every minute of his last lesson. The sense of patriotism that he arouses in his students during his last lesson also certify him as an ideal teacher. Next question. How does MML arouse patriotic feelings in the people of Alsace? MML arouses patriotic feelings by making the people of Alsace understand that their mother tongue is their identity and the key of freedom. By writing Vive la France on the board, he makes his countrymen realize that they must preserve their national identity. Next question. What was the mood in the classroom when M. Hamel gave his last French lesson? The mood in the classroom was grim and solemn. There was pin drop silence and nothing distracted the attention of either children or the adults. With their patriotic feelings aroused, everybody had a sense of remorse for having wasted the chance to learn French properly. Next question. Was Horser? How? What was the effect of last lesson on him? Horser was one of the villagers who had come to learn the last French lesson. He sat at the back of the room holding his old printer and spelled the letters. The lesson evoked patriotic sentiments in him. His voice trembled and he could be seen crying. Why did M. Hamel write Vive la France on the blackboard? M. Hamel wanted to sign off the most important lesson of his life at a high patriotic note, so he wrote Vive la France on the blackboard as the last reminder to his students to uphold their national nation in esteem always. So thank you everyone. Kindly like, share and comment on my videos. I will be soon with my new videos. Thank you.